Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sherry. I'm an occupational therapy
Good afternoon.
student.
Nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Good, good. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Your name was?
No, it's okay. I'm Sherry, and I'm an occupational therapy student. I'm going to be interviewing you today just to kind of get to know you a little bit better as an individual, and then kind of just get a good feeling about what your life has been like during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Do you mind just letting me know what your name is?
My name is Gabriel Costa. Yep.
Awesome. It's nice to meet you, Gabriel.
Pleasure's mine.
Yeah. And then before we get started, since it is related to COVID, I wanted to know if you're comfortable with us interviewing without face masks on. If not, that's
It's perfectly
completely
fine. Yeah, we can relax the mask.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and take it off. And then that way we can kind of get to know each other a little bit better, and I can get a good recognition of like how you're feeling about everything.
Of course, yeah, let's make this personal.
Okay, awesome. And then one last thing, I do want to take a few notes while we're talking, just so I can kind of write some notes down and get like a good understanding of what's happening.
By all means.
Okay, perfect. So we can go ahead and get started. First, I kind of want to just get to know you, like who you are as a person. So just go ahead and describe to me like what's most important in your life and kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, what's most important in my life? I have a family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a father to a 2-year-old, and I'm engaged. So I would say family is probably the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm a full-time student and part-time worker as an occupational therapist. So I can relate to what you're doing right now just a little bit. But yeah, that's my main importance. And the reason I'm back in school and going to school is because I want to provide my family a better life. My fiance is was an ER nurse. Now she works from home. And so just we're in the medical field. And yeah, it's just like basically my home construct. We live in a 2 or 3 bedroom townhouse, and local to Miami, born and raised in Miami. And my fiance is from New York originally. Well, Dominican Republic, moved to New York, and has been in Miami for a while now. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. It sounds like family is a really important part of your life, and that possibly contributed to you expanding your career goals. And it just kind of sounds like you are very family centered in the way that you kind of view everything in life.
Yes, everything's through the prism of my family and how it would affect them.
Do you want to elaborate more in regards to like why you possibly would have expanded your career a little bit more in regards to your family?
Well, income for one, and I think I would have a little bit more autonomy in what it is that I can do in my job. Have a little bit more say. Just I don't know. I'm never really a person that's just kind of satisfied with the middle ground. I always try to improve, and I feel like it was the next step in my progression.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then just to kind of relate it off of that, because you are pursuing a career during this climate time and kind of in a sense like a difficult time for the world, would you mind kind of elaborating on how possibly the past few years might have changed in regards to your decision because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
So it's kind of crazy, and I mean I feel somewhat selfish to state it the way that I do, but personally, me as a person, it affected me in a lot of positive ways, and I hate to look at it that way because so many people had such a hard time with it and were challenged with either loss of family or friends and things like that. But at the time, I was taking 7 classes in my undergrad, and it wasn't meant to be that way, but it turned out to be that way with labs and all kinds of stuff. And it was super hectic, and I was working about 23 hours a week at the same time and my daughter was 4 months old. So it was a lot of things happening all at one time, and then the pandemic hit. We went into a quarantine, and it was just like everything slowed down. Also, aside from my job, I'm a Coast Guard reservist, so I technically had 2 jobs, went to school full-time, newborn daughter. So it was a lot of things. And then because of quarantine, I wasn't doing any Coast Guard drills. My classes went from being in person to online for the most part, or actually all of them were. So it was almost like a pause, and like everything went from being ×2 speed to like 0.5. So in that regard, it was a blessing. I was able to get better financial stability through other means. And so it worked out pretty good. The mask thing is kind of a nuisance, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, as it is with like many different things, but it sounds like overall then COVID-19 really was a positive impact, especially since you said that you're kind of overwhelmed, if I'm understanding correctly.
At the time, I was, and I mean, my fiance was too because she was dealing with it firsthand in the ER. But then, at least when things got a pause for me, it kind of like I was able to balance things out a little bit. Because if we were both high strung and everything was going super fast, it would have made it worse, but because my tempo slowed down, it made it better for all of us.
Do you believe with that maybe family played like a big factor in like how you felt with the pandemic starting?
For sure. Our circle was really small. Basically my family and my parents and her parents, and that was the extent of it. And so we got to focus on what was most important to us, which was staying safe and family.
Would you say then that your family was your strongest support system throughout the past
1,000%.
years? Okay, that's great. Do you have like anyone else that you would consider within that, or just mainly family would be like your biggest one?
There's a couple close friends that I don't even consider them friends. Like they're families, friends of over 20 years. So yeah, they're part of our support system, part of our group.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for sharing that part and kind of how it impacted you. But since it was such a positive impact, did you find that like anything like as yourself as a father, as a student, as a worker, if anything else was impacted negatively?
Yeah, I mean, anxiety was higher. I'm the type of person that like I've had a lot of challenges throughout life, very different kinds, and maybe in hindsight I look back at it like first world problems, right? But you look back at it and you're like, man, this was tough, but it's that positive mindset that keeps you pushing through and that makes you a stronger character and a better person at the end of it. So I try not to focus too much on the negative. But there was a lot of anxiety. I was like, I mean, I gotta go to the grocery store, I gotta buy stuff, I'm changing clothes before I even barely walk into my house because my daughter doesn't have much of an immune system at the time, and all this other stuff, and just like the little like things that you can't even like maintain on your day-to-day life. But that was the beginning of the pandemic, and then so that kind of stuff was very strenuous, but we coped, we dealt, and we adapted, and we overcame.
It sounds like your anxiety then has kind of diminished since the pandemic has kind of moved forward. Is that correct?
Throughout time, yeah, it's kind of become normalized, right? So it's like not so much of a high strung, like at this point, like we take the precautions, and if we're unlucky enough, at least the way I see it, we're unlucky enough to catch the virus, and hopefully we can persevere and turn out okay from it. But it's almost like the day-to-day stress of trying to avoid it is worse than just
definitely. I definitely understand what you're saying and where you're coming from in regards to that. And then lastly, I just want to also focus on, just since you mentioned your story with COVID and everything, did you find yourself having to adapt in any way that you might not have previously done in regards to like your actions?
Yeah, I mean, I always wash my hands after I go to the bathroom. But other than that, it would always made a point to like, oh, don't touch this, or like, throw an elbow at that, or like, push a button with my, I don't know, like just things that you normally wouldn't do. A little bit functionality had changed. But and maybe avoiding large gatherings, things of that sort. Up until I got vaccinated, that was something that I definitely wouldn't do. And even then, I take the precautions when in those kind of situations. I think I went to a bar like once during the pandemic, maybe twice, and that's about it.
Yeah. And then since that's great how like you personally adapted as an individual, I'm kind of interested, since you're a father, if that kind of changed your parenting skills too.
Parenting skills, no, but it did put an emphasis on socialization with my daughter. It was the person who was definitely impacted the most by it, especially till this day, was my daughter, because when it comes down to socializing, like it came down to a point where, okay, so my mother is a breast cancer survivor, and she has a compromised immune system. So there was a point in time, because my wife would work in the ER, that she wasn't allowed to come see the baby not because we probably could have gone a little further. Well, actually, you know what? Whatever. So yeah, that was compromised. but socializing my daughter is more important right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely bet it is. Well, it was nice meeting you and interviewing you. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. I had a feeling that was going that route.
Damn.
Whoa. That was